Okay, we've logged into our MFG Plus dashboard. As you can see, first thing we want to do is on the left-hand side, we want to go to Sites. And there's two different options. You could do a funnel or you can do a website. This is more of a website that we're building. We're not building a funnel right now. If you don't know the difference, go back and watch one of the funnel builder trainings. But this is a website, so we're going to go to websites. What I usually do is I create a folder, and we're just going to call this, I like numbering this so I can keep everything. So I'm going to call it 20.0, and then I'm going to call it Shield Protection Insurance. Let's spell shield properly. And click confirm. So now we know everything is going to go into that one folder. I click there. And now we're in this folder, and I can either click this blue button or this blue button. It does the same thing. We're going to click new site. And we're just going to go from scratch. Now, there are over 1,000 templates in here that you may or may not have access to. We're going to be building this from scratch. So we'll just call this Shield and click create. All right, so now we've got the basics set up. Now we need to add a page to this website. So we're going to click the add new page button right here. And this is going to be the main page. Don't need to do anything else. Just click create new page. And you can either use an existing page or create from blank. We're going to create from blank. Okay, and it comes up, and the first thing that pops up is over on the left-hand side, it says add a section. You can either do a full width, a wide, a medium, and small. We're going to do a full width section. And this means that it goes across the entire page. Let's go back here, and we can do a wide, which is a little bit less. And obviously medium is medium and small is small. I usually start off with the full width. And if you needed to change it, you can do it later on. It's just a lot easier to start off with full width. And what we need to do is figure out how many of these sections are we going to need. So I'm going to go to my web builder, my little page that we had, and we're going to build the main page. Let's go here. I think this is it. All right. So this is kind of the main page that we were thinking about. It's a little bit convoluted right now, but I think I remember a lot of the elements that we wanted to do, right? So we definitely have one section up here, and this would be two sections, 3 sections for the testimonials. Another is 4 sections. This was section 5, and then the footer would be its own section. Let's call that section 6. So we need 6 sections. So let's close this, and I'm just going to add 6 sections. And you can just copy this. It's fine. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got our 6 sections right here. And the sections are outlined in blue. The next thing we want to do is go back to our template here that we're kind of moving off of. And we have, this is the header, and we've got a bunch of different elements in here that we want to make sure that we cover, right? So let's blow this up a little bit, and so we can see it a little bit better. Oops, there we go. All right, so we've got a telephone number up here in the top. We've got information, so we have an email address, we have a logo. Let's expand this just a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. Move that out of the way, move this out of the way. And we've got a bunch of different options here for serve, educate, protect, team, get a quote, the phone number again, and then we've got a bunch of social media buttons and the telephone and email again, okay? So we're going to replicate this as closely as possible. And it looks like we've really got, in this section, this black section right here, we've really got two different rows, right? We've got this top row, which has the phone number, the email address with some icons. And then we also have the social media icons right here. And then we've got a second row, which has the logo and then a bunch of drop-down menus and a button and a telephone number, right? So there's a couple different ways we can do this, and I'll show you both ways, possibly three different ways, but you pick the one that works best for you. You may not have all of these elements. For example, you probably don't have as many social media icons up here as this guy does. You may not want to put your email address up here so you avoid spam. There's a bunch of different options, right? So we'll create this a couple different ways, and we'll see what works best. Okay, I'm back into the website builder here, and we're going to click this little plus sign right here, and we're going to add an element. And instead of adding a section, which are these green areas right here, we're going to add a row. And we're going to do a 1-column row. There you go. What we notice though is these are the columns, right? We've got 1, 2, we've got a big blank column in the center. Then we've got a third, fourth column over here on the right-hand side. So what we probably want to do is, instead of just one row and one column, we want to have one row with 4 columns. So let's go back here, and we've already added the row, and that's in the blue. The columns are in the lavender or purple. So we're going to add 3 more columns. 1. So you can see you've got 2 columns now. 2. And we've got 3 columns, and 4. Now I could have done this automatically by just going to Elements and Rows. And then this is a 2-column, a 3-column, or a 4-column. But I wanted to show you that you could do it a couple different ways. Okay. Let's get rid of that. All right, so the first column here looks like we're going to put the telephone number. So let's put the telephone number in there. And I like putting things on buttons, and you'll see why in a second. If I were to just, let's say, put a subheadline in there, text, and then do 888-555-1212, there's not a whole lot I can do with it after that, right? I can do some changes to it, go over here and add a drop shadow and change the font, change the color, and things like that. But buttons have a lot more features and functionality built into them. So we're going to put a button here, not just a text box. So we're going to delete that element, and we're going to add an element called a button. We're just going to add that button. And if you notice, the button doesn't look like we want it to. We want a clear button, and we're going to keep this background white because our logo is black, whereas this logo is white, right? So we're just going to keep the background white, and the logo is going to be dark. So we want to keep that in mind. So we're going to change this logo, or the background on the button, to white. And we lost the text on that. So let's change the text color to black. So your color options right here. We're going to change that to black. And we can change the subtext color to black as well. This does not have subtext, but now we can put in our telephone number, 888-555-1212. And now what we can do is you have the button actions, and you can do all kinds of stuff with these buttons. You can do a click to call, you can do an email, you can do a pop-up, you can do all kinds of stuff. This one, if you remember, go back to here, and this is a telephone number. So we want to either have it send a text message, or when they click it, they're going to call. We're going to assume that most people are going to call. So we're just going to type in, or select the call option. And then you type in +1 888-555 1421 is the number that we used. Okay. And then you can click off of it. And now that number is configured to when somebody goes to that website and they click on this, it'll actually call the number. You could have configured it to text the number, but we're just going to use the call for now. So what's the next area? Next area is the email. So let's go back to here, and we're just going to copy this. And I'm going to click and drag it over to the next field. There's a little handle right there, which is the grab button. So you just click and drag that to the next field. And instead of the telephone number, we're just going to do the email address. So info@shield.com. And that's our fake email address and everything. And now our link is going to be an email address. And we're going to do info@shield.com. Now let's see what else we're missing here. Okay, so it's got a little phone icon and a little email icon before that. So let's see if we can't figure out how to do those. Let's go back into our button right here. And up at the top, it has an icon picker. And we have an icon picker after. So the icon picker allows you to choose a little icon. So we want to type in phone. So there's a phone. And then we go to the next one. And this is an email. And that looks like an email right there. And then we've got a big blank area, right? So this is all blank. And then we have our social icons. Let's go back here. So we're going to leave this one blank. And then we're going to add, and on the left-hand side, we've got social icons in here. Social icons. We're just going to click and drag that up. And you see it adds a whole bunch of them. Over here on the right-hand side, you can configure this. So whichever ones you don't have, you just click the delete button on. So let's say you don't have an X, which is formerly Twitter. You just delete that off of there. You don't have Instagram. You don't have LinkedIn. Okay. And you have a YouTube, a Facebook, and a TikTok account. So then you can click the little pencil and you can configure it, right? So you just type in facebook.com, and then you would put in your Facebook account username, right? So I think mine is Boom Retirement is one of them. So we'll click that. And how you find that is if you go to facebook.com and Boom Retirement, and you can see that it will go to my Boom Retirement Facebook page. So when you log in, over here on the left-hand side, it should say Manage Page, and you can click on that and choose what page you want to manage. And from there, you should be able to find out where your page ID is. It's typically under the settings area. So let's go into here. I'm going to go to my Boom Retirement account. And go to settings here on the left-hand side. And then under settings, you've got page details. And your page details will show you where, what the address is for your page. Okay. And if you can't find it in any of these areas, you don't have to worry. It's always right here up on the toolbar. Just take off the about at the end, and that's the page. So you can go there, go into your Facebook, and then just paste that in there. All right, so now these buttons look a little bit big for my taste. So we're going to shrink those down. We're going to go 20 by 20 there, and that seems a little bit better. Also, it's a little bit redundant to have the text underneath it. We're just going to do the icons. And that looks better. And that should be good. Now, we did want to add in a couple other items, right? So they also have, let's go back to our example here. We don't have as many social icons, but there is a phone and an email there. There's a couple different ways you can handle this phone and email. You can either go to your social icons and add a social icon. And let's say you want to add a social media and you go down to email and allow your input. So info@shield.com. There you go. All right, so that'll add that in there. The other option is if you run out of, like it doesn't have a phone icon in there, which is fine. What we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this. And you notice it puts it on top and bottom. Well, that's no good. That's not what we want. So if you click on the purple box and scroll down on the right-hand side, and instead of doing the content position, the center spacing and content alignment is here. We're going to change this from vertical to horizontal. And instead of content spacing, we're going to do left. And we're going to increase the size of this box a little bit. There you go. And now we don't want the social icons in there, so we're just going to delete that. But what we want to put is another button. And you can either copy the button that's already there, which would probably be the best idea, or you can drag a new button in here and just reconfigure that. So I'm going to reconfigure that, and we've already done this once before, so it should be easy. And go down and change the color of the text to black. And we're going to change this to a telephone number again. And it's 888-555-1421. And we're going to turn that into, this time we're going to do an SMS. And how you configure this is you have to do the +1 in front of it. So no dashes, no spaces, just a +1 and then the phone number. Now, if you notice, it kind of skews it. It doesn't put it on the correct line, right? So we need to fix that formatting there. So how we fix that is we click on the item and we scroll all the way to the bottom here. And we're going to go to this purple box right there. And instead of the content spacing left, we're going to change it to center. We're just going to play around with these configurations to see if we can't get this correct. And it looks like it's the content position and center. And there you go. It's all centered. So now this line, this line, this line, and this line are all on the same line. They're all equal, right? Now, what I am noticing, though, is this is kind of big, right? So you can play around with the text size. I don't think it's really important for what we're doing, but I am going to change this, let's say, for 12 point. And we're going to change this to 12 point. So what I would do is just be careful about making this too small. You definitely want to check it out and get some feedback from your clients to see, hey, is this a little bit too small for you? If you're dealing with an elderly type client group or audience, then you may want to, just have larger font. There's no wrong or right. You just have to make sure that whatever you do it for the benefit of your audience, not for you, right? So function over form. So telephone number, this does look a little bit small. So I'm going to change that font size. Let's change it to 18. Yeah, that's a little bit better. 20 was a little bit too large, I think, but 18 is much better. So we'll change all those. Right? So now we've got that first line. Now what we want to do is add that second line. And there's a couple different ways you can run this second line, but you can either do it in a separate section, but but I think this is really considered the same section because it is the header. So I'm going to leave that all in the header, but we're going to add a second row. So we're going to go to here and go to the blue one. You can either click this blue plus sign, or over on the left-hand side, you can click the plus sign, click rows. And for this row, we want 1, 2 is the gap, and then 3 is this information right here, which is the drop-down menus. We have 4 and 5. So we're going to do 5 different columns here. So let's go back here. And we've got a 5 column right here. So I'm just going to click and drag that over to that right there. And let's see what we need. So first thing we need to do is get a logo. Then we're going to have a space, and we're going to have a serve. So these are all drop-down menus. So let's see what we have here. So the first one is a logo. So we're going to add an element, and that's going to be an image, right? So we go down to our image, and we just drag that over. And it's just going to put a placeholder in there for right now, so that's fine. The next one is going to be a blank space, so we'll just leave that open. The next one is going to be our header menu. So it's called a navigation menu. Click that. Oh, look at that. Well, it already has an image in it. So that saves us a couple of columns, doesn't it? So we could just delete this and delete the column and delete this column, and we'll take care of it. Now, it doesn't look exactly like this one, right? Got this big gap here. And not that that's bad, it's different, right? So you may want to play around with this a little bit to see if you can't get it to look exactly like what you were doing. I don't think you need a business name in there. Obviously, we need to change the name of these drop-down menus. But overall, I think it's looking pretty close. Let's see if we can get rid of this business name. So we've got this highlighted, and over on the right-hand side, and there's usually an option where you can turn that off. Logo in the menu, that one's turned on, that's fine. And alternate text, that's fine. There should be an option to turn off the text there. Let's check under the advanced. So go to advanced. Headline in the menu, that's what it's called. There you go. So we just turn that menu off. Okay. So that actually looks pretty close. Yep. So now we just need to replace this image with the logo that we have. Let's go down to our images here. So we have our brand logo, and we're going to search out for that. And we're going to create a new folder called logo. And we're going to save that. We're going to go into that folder. We're going to upload a file, and we're going to upload a logo file just so we have it. All right, and we've got 2 different logos in here, and I'll show you why we've got 2 different logos. We're going to go to details over here. And the reason is one of these is a JPEG file, and one of these is a PNG or a PNG file. And I'm going to show you the difference and why and when we would use these. If you notice, the PNG file is a little bit smaller. The JPEG file is a little bit larger, but we're talking about 30 kilobytes here. It's nothing. But if you're using a picture or any kind of images or photographs, typically the JPEG is going to be smaller. For logos and simpler type things where you don't have as many gradations and things like that, then you would typically want to use a PNG file. Also, PNG files can have transparent backgrounds, and I'll show you what that means in a second here. So we're going to upload both of those, And I'm going to choose this one right here. And you notice it kind of wonks it out because we don't have a square logo. We've got a rectangular one. So over on the right-hand side, I'm going to change the width. And there we go. So if you notice up here, he's got a square logo and we've got a rectangular logo. So that's fine. It is a little bit larger than I'd like. So I'm going to change that to, let's say, 50. See what that looks like. That's much better. Okay. The next thing we want to do is I want to show you something on why we're using the PNG over the TEC or the JPEG. So let's change the background color on this column right here. So on the right-hand side, I highlighted the column, background color, and I'm going to change this to, let's just change it to a light blue. So if you notice, there is a white bar that goes across. Okay. So let's click on there and we're going to change that background color to, let's do lavender. So if you notice, that did not change. So the Shield Insurance, that tells me that I'm not using the PNG file, I'm using the JPEG file. So let's change that to the PNG file so you can see the difference. So we're going to go to Assets again, Image Brand Logo, and we're going to change that to the second one right here. And now the color is the background color for the logo was removed because on PNG files, when you create those, you can create a transparent background color. So this is one of the benefits of using PNG files over JPEG files is that JPEG, you have to have a colored background. It doesn't matter what color it is, but you do have to have a background color. With PNG files, you don't. You can have a transparent background. So we're going to leave the transparent PNG file there. We're going to change our background colors back to what they should be. Let's click there. And we're going to go to transparent. We're going to click there and we're going to go to transparent. There you go. Now what's the next thing? So the next thing is we need to get a quote button and a phone number button. So now we don't have a get a quote button, but remember this and this are our on buttons. And we know we want this one over here also. So we're just going to copy this and we're going to drag it over to here. And this one is a get a quote button. So we can either just copy this button or we could bring in a brand new button if you needed to. Let's put that in the right spot. There you go. And you can resize this by just grabbing this little purple dot right there, or lavender dot. Now this needs to say get a quote, and we probably want it in a bright color. Now we're using red, white, and blue, so I'm probably going to use the red. So if I click here and go to red, there's the red. And we're going to say get a quote. And we're going to shrink this down just a little bit, a tad more. I don't think we need it quite so big. I'm going to increase this one just a little bit. I'm just clicking and dragging. There we go. Okay. Now we need to change this to where it's going. Right now it's going to open up a pop-up, and that's fine. For right now, we're just going to leave it there. Later on, though, we may want to change it to something else. Okay. And that's basically the outline for our header. There's some little things that we still need to do to this, but overall, it has all the elements. The layout is not perfect, right? We still need to add in our drop-down, our proper names of the drop-down menus and things like that, which is easy. But let's fix the spacing and formatting issues that we have going on here. So right now, you'll see that the gap between this row and this row is a lot, right? So what we want to do is we want to start from the blue option, which is the row. And over here on the right-hand side, we've got margin and padding. And we're going to just move that to 0 and move that to 0. There may also be a margin. Right now, this one's set to 0, but if it was set at any other number, we'd move that to 0. Then we want to go to the columns and move that to 0. And we need to do that for every column. Even the blank one. May not need to do it for that. There it is. So this one's got a margin. We're going to move that to 0. And it's got padding on there. There we go. And then the last one is here. Right. And then you need to do it for each one of the elements. So this is for the button. And for the buttons, you may want to, okay, the button looks okay. Sometimes when you do the buttons, you may want to add just a pixel or two on top or bottom. But for right now, it looks fine. Sometimes when you're using a colored background, and I'll show you this in a second, but when you're using a colored background, it has a tendency to change that. We've already done this one. So that's fine. And let's do this one. There we go. Okay. And let's save our progress. So now what we want to do is we want to do that same thing for this one. So we click here and we change this to zeros as well. That one's already set to 0. And you're going to see what I mean about, okay, it doesn't look too bad. Sometimes it just gets a little bit close for comfort, right? It makes the button a little bit too small if you take away all the padding. There we go. All right, so that gets a little bit closer. And let's double check, make sure we've got everything. Oh, we missed a couple here. Fix this one. And fix this one. So just remember, you have to do it for all three. You have to do it for the blue section, which is the row, the purple or the lavender, which is the columns, and you have to do it for the elements inside of there, okay? Now, if you still are not seeing that it's close enough, then you may need to change out like the size of your logo, or there's something that's messing it up. It's not too bad. That's pretty close, right? I would like to see it a little bit closer, and just to get it to look a little bit, this is pretty close, right? There's only about 3 or 4 pixels there. And this one looks like it's got about 8 or 10. I could play with it a little bit more, but I think you get the idea. You just have to shrink the padding and the margins as much as you can, and it'll take care of itself, okay? I think we're good as far as this is concerned. Let's change this color background just to see what it looks like. Now, yeah, these white buttons, I'm not loving that, so I'm going to change it back to the transparent background or the white background. Okay. All right, next thing we need to do is fix this column right here. This column has a whole bunch of items in the menu items which are not really applicable to what we're doing, right? So we may want to keep the home and the about and leave our team there, and the contact, that's fine, but we do want to put in a new button called Solutions. And we're going to leave the URL blank for right now. We don't have any other pages to go to, but later on we'll configure that page and we'll click submit. So now we've added the solutions. Now, if you don't want the solutions here, you want it next to home, over on the menu on the right-hand side, you just click and drag it. Let's get back to the left-hand. Okay, so if you see what I just did, see how this is indented right here? Well, that put it underneath home. We don't want it underneath home. We want it as the main menu. So just click and drag it a little bit to the left. It's a little bit finicky, so just be aware of that. Okay. So now if you drag it underneath home, there is an indent. So right here, if I go over the about, there's team, right? So that team is under the about. So just be aware of that. And you can change the typography and headline and all that stuff. But for right now, we're just going to keep it there. The last thing we want to do is go here and we want to change the padding on this. And this is the actual section. And there we go. So now the section padding and all these rows and column padding is good. All this padding looks good. Yeah, we're on target. Okay. So next video, we're going to cover the next section. And this next section, let's get this out of the way a little bit. This next section, we wanted to have a couple different elements that we're pulling in from a couple different websites. The first thing we want to do is have our logo and a lead capture form and a nice little video on the right-hand side. So let's build that in the next video.